we turn to Kristin Smith, the Executive Director of the Blockchain Association, which assists in key policy solutions among regulators, lawmakers, public for the digital asset space. In particular, you're, of course, dare I say it, sort of talking, some would say lobbying on behalf of your members, Eva Labs, BH Digital, BitDeer, not FTX.
Not FTX, thank goodness. We actually had tremendous differences on strategy with FTX, and so they were never part of the Blockchain Association. And so if there's a silver lining in all of this, it's that we don't have to be competing with them for strategy in Washington anymore.
Okay, so talk about strategy. Talk about out of the ashes, the roses that will grow, that many will hope is an easier playing field, a more clear playing field, a more transparent playing field. Is that likely? Because we asked our audience, we had a Twitter poll, we asked them whether they're confident or not as to whether crypto regulation will meet the mark at this moment. And as we can bring up, like 46% say don't hold your breath. People are on the fence.
Yeah, well, listen, I think there was a really healthy discussion going on in Washington prior to the collapse of FTX on what we need to do to move forward with crypto regulation. I think there's two key areas, one dealing with fiat or dollar-backed stablecoins and what those regulatory parameters should look like. I also think we were starting to have a healthy conversation around what crypto exchange, the spot markets where consumers buy and sell crypto, what the appropriate regulation for that should look like. Those are two very clear gaps. I think the challenge we have now with this FTX situation is the conversation has moved from a small group of policymakers who had really taken the time to understand this space to a much broader audience within Congress who wants to get involved and do something. So I think this is going to slow the legislative process down, but I don't think it's going to end the legislative process. I think there are tens of millions of American consumers who own crypto. Crypto networks are providing incredibly valuable services that are going to be the future of a new internet, a future of new financial infrastructure. This is innovation that we cannot undo and we want to be competitive with here in the US, and the regulation, getting that regulation right is key to doing that.
Kristin, it's good to see you. I hope you're well. The mission statement of the Blockchain Association is to advance the future of crypto in the United States. Has what's happened with FTX, what we've learned about Sam Bankman-Fried, impacted or jeopardized that mission?
Well, listen, I think it's certainly a setback. I mean, we've had today, we heard about the incredible shortcomings at FTX International and its related companies. We've seen the charges and the indictments that have come down today. I mean, this is really serious stuff, but this is incredibly abnormal behavior compared to how most people in the crypto community operate. Most people are here because they want to empower people, because they value transparency. This is a technology, that can empower good for the world, and I think it's going to be incumbent upon us in the crypto industry to pick up the pieces that Sam has left with the mess that he has made. And I think it will take some time, but I'm optimistic that we will be able to move beyond this and return to having positive discussions around policy. But more importantly, the builders in this space are continuing to create, and they're bringing forward ideas. And I think ultimately it will become incredibly obvious to everyday people that crypto is a force for good and it's here to stay.
As you mentioned, Kristin, Sam Bankman-Fried charged with 8 criminal counts, including conspiracy and wire fraud. What was interesting to me is during the testimony of the current FTX CEO, he kind of laid bare some of the shortcomings of the humans behind FTX and Alameda, lack of financial controls, lack of experience. My question to you is, what did we learn about some of the structural issues in this industry? What are the concrete things that need to be fixed with the crypto industry and also the underlying technologies that support it?
Yeah, well, I think my takeaway from listening to the hearing today was that this is not a structural problem within the broader crypto industry. This was a structural problem with FTX. They didn't have internal controls. They weren't following local laws. They weren't meeting their own terms of service. They didn't have any record keeping. I mean, this company was a mess. It was in some ways barely a company. And I think that if you look at the way companies in the U.S. that are regulated by state money transmitter licenses, who are registered with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network as money services businesses, these companies are doing the right things and have taken the steps as required under law in order to protect consumers. We've also seen companies take further steps and do things like proof of reserves, where they're able to show that all customer assets are being held and segregated and accounted for. And so I think that this is something that policymakers are going to be grappling with as we head into 2023. I do think that they're going to have additional hearings with the start of the new Congress starting in January. And we're going to see a lot of legislative proposals in both the House and the Senate that take and attempt to tackle different pieces of this. So I think there's a lot of work to do, a lot of discussion that's going on. Yeah. But this is an important space and one that we need to make sure lawmakers get right.
Quickly, Kristin, you, of course, focus on the United States, but as has been so evident with FTX, this is a global technology and needs global focus. Are you worried about the entities that just don't register here in the US or aren't regulated by the US, or make sure that they're not?
Yeah, well, and I think that's an important conversation to have, because U.S. policymakers cannot tell the Bahamas regulators what to do. So I think what the important thing is here is that any related U.S. entities or sister companies of foreign companies must be regulated properly here in the United States. FTX was regulated, but as we found today, there was some commingling between the two organizations. That's not supposed to happen under U.S. laws. And so I think that we really do need to have the United States step up, show some leadership, show how we should be doing regulation, and work with our counterparts in countries around the world to ensure that they're doing the same.